Hi everyone, welcome once again to the 24-bit podcast. It's the start of a new year, it's 2024 and we are here with a brand new shoot. We are hoping to be more consistent, to bring you a lot more stuff this year, and this will be episode 69. Of course, there are lots of bonus episodes that we've done, but from our sequencing, this is episode 69 of the 24-bit podcast, and I am joined by my colleagues. Starting from the one to my right.
Okay, so my name is Nixon Kanali.
And
Dickson Otieno.
And we also have a guest who's not really a guest to you if you listen to this podcast regularly. She's been with us before, but she'll introduce herself.
Thanks, Chenze. My name is Okal. I'm a tech policy lawyer.
Good. Thank you, June, for joining us. And she's joining us to discuss something we've made a culture of doing here at 24-bit at the start of the year. And last year, I think Nick and myself did some contributions to the Safaricom newsletter on the same. Mm-hmm. You remember?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Predictions for the year, what we look forward to in the year. So this premiere episode for 2024, that's what we are going to explore. Like, what are some of the developments in tech, in the country, in the region, in the continent? And since we are influenced by what happens around the world, also around the world, that we are looking to see, that we are hoping to see, that might happen. Yeah. So first things first, I'll go around asking each one of us what they foresee happening in some of the topics that we've already shortlisted to be some of the things that we'll discuss today, and because we also foresee there being major developments in the course of the year. So first things first, of course, everyone has been talking about this on social media. Everyone is up in arms of creative work being done by artificial intelligence systems. So AI was a big thing in 2023. It's been a recurring theme since 2022, and that's not stopping in 2024. So all things AI, where do we start, Dickson?
Where do we start with AI?
Yeah, in 2024, given that it's been a recurring theme since late 2022 when we got ChatGPT, and now everyone is throwing money at AI, everyone is realigning their goals and their strategies and their launches to do with AI. Samsung has a launch coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Being told
Galaxy AI.
Mobile AI, Galaxy AI. Like, it's AI, everything AI, everywhere.
I think the very first place to start this year is the fact that OpenAI has launched something they call GPT Store. Mm-hmm. So you can build your own GPTs using their large language model and customize them for specific tasks. I had some small thing that I did where it can answer you Safaricom stuff and all that. So people are going to do a lot of crazy stuff with a large language model that's already trained, where you only customize what you want so that it answers your specific queries or does your math and all that. Second thing is, we're going to see a lot of with AI this year, more than last year, because everyone wants to get into the mix. First of all, there's news that Apple will finally do something around AI, because they've always been quiet about that. So Siri. 2, Google Assistant has had some tweaks from an announcement yesterday where they're removing a lot of things.
Are not really for the best.
Yes, because they want to bring bad inside, and bad only does searches very well. So I think that's what they're doing. Third thing is, we're going to see a lot of advertisement. We're already seeing that from Christmas. So a lot of advertisement, a lot of agencies will move to using AI for generative images and all that. Yeah.
Nick?
Same thing, we just talked about, Samsung already pushing AI. And remember last time when, was it Apple? When they were releasing the Apple 15, I think? It was AI meme,
Yeah.
So I think that's what we should actually expect to see, this year, a lot of AI implemented in different forms, especially generative AI. Mm-hmm. We are seeing it actually being widely implemented already with some, some organization, even Safaricom and the rest. So yeah.
Yeah, I was reading yesterday. Was it yesterday or some an FT report reporting from London on Deloitte. Deloitte has an in-house AI system.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. And while other organizations are sourcing their work to OpenAI to do stuff for them, they've done something in-house from the ground up, and they're testing it with their global workforce. So yeah, I'm expecting those kinds of announcements going going forward. Like a lot of organizations are realizing there's a lot more, like a way you can get a lot more smarter, especially if you have troves and troves of data. AI makes the synthesis easier, all those nice things. And what's happened with generative AI, the poster child is ChatGPT. So a lot of people are coming around to the idea of just opening some bubble on your phone or on your computer, keying in keywords, and then getting all solutions. June, you happen to be a lawyer, so your entire ecosystem is very interesting, and you're also in the tech space. What does AI look to you like in 2024?
Yeah, so 3 things. I think number 1 is just a conversation we were having earlier around consumer protection and what that means. So that should be interesting to play out. Should advertisers, for example, if they use AI, disclose? Some people in this room think they should, some don't.
They shouldn't, yeah.
That's an interesting conversation to have, especially because consumer protection is enshrined in our constitution, at least in Kenya. Also, that will be a bigger conversation when it comes to the global scene. The second, I think, is around environmental sustainability and just the computing power that AI requires and actually consumes. Energy keeps being a big conversation globally, especially for most of these tech companies, several corporations. There's requirements and goals that people will have to aspire to and try to meet. So I think that will still be a big conversation surrounding AI in the coming year. And then the third is the professionalism of AI. You know, everyone now is an AI expert, an AI ethics policy professional. It's an emerging area. There's no certification around it. You know, if you make a GPT on the GPT store like Dickson did, are you an AI expert? You know, what does that mean? Too soon. But I think that will also be part of the bigger conversation around AI this year.
So widespread implementation, you know, we expect to see that this year?
Oh, yeah.
Regulatory things, like now, if we are saying people need to disclose and all, who's in charge of that? Who's the police for AI in Kenya, for instance?
True.
Okay, so the next thing that, of course, this is central to every Kenyan. And those who are 17, it's going to be central in your lives when you turn it tax. We've had a 2022 where, a 2022, because we are going back all the way to when the President Ruto administration took over, towards the end of 2022. So we had that, and then we came into our 2023 where tax just became central to all our conversations. Dinner table tax, at work tax. In setups like this, now we are talking tax. So tax in tech is something we need to talk about, because for one, it's going to affect people who do already things like what we do, and other players. For starters, everyone has known that the price of the tech that we care about keeps going up because tax. So how do you see it playing out in 2024, Dickson, in terms of, for instance, from a corporate point of view and also from a consumer-centered point of view?
First of all, the problem with tax in Kenya is currently we are trying to do so much around expanding the tax bracket to an extent where sasa we are overtaxing. So you are double tax, triple tax, quadruple tax, whatever, because somebody is trying to expand the tax base. So I think in 2024, the discussion we need to have is how to digitize all taxes so that if somebody has been taxed before of a certain thing, it's not carried over into other things. So that, for example, I should not be taxed for moving my own cash. I think that should be really, because if I'm moving my cash from this box to this box, normally, there was no tax for that. Why is there tax for that when I'm moving from this wallet to that wallet? So tax should only exist when you're paying for a service, paying for a product, or all that. 2, they should also regulate the cap on taxation. Like if taxation is 8%, it should remain 8% across the board, so that come on 8% for fuel, I do not pay another tax for transacting when paying for the fuel when doing for what evil. So digitizing the tax base will make it easier to know that shakwa tax, this amount is already taxed, so it's reflected ukuju. Yes. 2, there'll be problems with e-teams because everyone is trying to be onboarded into an invoicing system. The good thing about an invoicing system, it makes point number 1 possible, where you know that this has been taxed for, this is accounted for. But the problem in Kenya is we want to do it overnight, so that will bring problems over time. I think more companies will suffer getting onboarded and all that. 3, I think the other issue remains that getting services for your taxes, which I don't think is our angle as a tech podcast, but
Anyway, we are coming there because there's a very interesting twist the government is doing, especially with regards to fuel. We've had the president and his handlers say we can move these border riders from using these fossil fuel powered bikes to electric bikes as a way, because cost will be low and all. We are going to talk mobility in a moment. Nick, you're a business owner. How is e-teams going to affect you and your types in 2024? Because that's like a big talking point, and e-teams is basically our tax authority being in sync with the times. Because if you live in some place like the US, you're pretty sure we are a global village now. You've seen Americans complain about some of these things. So it's us being on that stage right now, and KRA using, all the tech that they can find to make sure the broadening of the tax base that Dickson was talking about happens, reaches everyone. And from my understanding of the earlier discourse around e-teams, as long as you have a phone, you should be able to issue invoices.
Yeah.
So for you, where you play and others like you, how is that affecting you and general tech in 2024?
First thing, I like the fact that KRA is really trying to actually make sure we can easily actually raise invoices without going through the ETR. You have to buy the ETR machine separately. You have to do all these things. But again, realized yesterday after the regulations were drafted, the final regulations, what did they say? Okay, now we exempt business that pay
the small that have revenues of less than 5 million.
Farmers.
Exactly.
Per year.
So farmers.
And farmers. Yeah.
So by taxpayers we mean businesses and individuals. So whether you are a farmer, whether you sell photocopying paper.
I think the regulation means farmers that are over 5 million, they're exempt.
Yeah.
Really?
And farmers, because farmers was the first thing on the list, if I remember.
Okay, I missed that.
Yeah.
I just got the bit where everyone else below 5M wasn't.
Yeah, so my question was, what happens to, for example, those of us who have already registered for the A-teams? You see? Because personally, we actually registered already for the A-teams, ready to issue invoices, but then unaambiwa tena, of course, we don't make 5. We're not at that level.
Yeah.
But so, of course, we like that they're expanding ways. Of course, they want to raise money, right? But at least make it, I don't know. I still feel there was no enough consumer education on that, on that, because waliamka tu asubuhi wakaamua. You see, I mean, it happens.
We want things to
and the deadline is coming in Feb.
I think things should be gradual.
Yeah, it should be
we
gradual.
should have a period of 2 years where something is implemented. So boom.
Yeah, because
Dickson,
again,
you're a good shopper at Gigi. It's an e-commerce platform for you and your types who rely on border riders. How is that going to affect you? Because assume you purchase something, it's tied to this podcast or your day-to-day operations, so you need to expense it when you are doing your returns. And that border guy comes, and assume as of right now, if they don't harmonize that whole system, how is that going to affect you and others like you?
Before the regulations are below 5 million, it will mean every receipt has to be passing through KRA, which will be a problem, because how do I harmonize Uber, boda normal, fuel normal, vitu into my returns? But now I don't think it's that much of an issue because I'm below the cap. That works for you because for you, you're below the cap, and your border and your border rider is below the cap. But now what will happen? For corporates, say somebody who supplies some big company around Nairobi, and them they are not, and the big company is. How does that work? If you supply food, you are a farmer.
because I was just telling June earlier that the company we are working with, they want an electronic invoice for an engagement. They're engaging me as Nick, not as tech trends. So how do you separate the two exactly?
Maybe just to add, I think from a public participation side of things, it's really good to see more people talking about finance bills and finance laws and the tax laws, because we haven't had that happening for years. So this is something that has happened in the past year or two, which is fantastic to see. So it's great to see more Kenyans actually actively being engaged when we have discussions around the fiscal policy of the country.
And online shout out to Julian Zamboko. He does a very good job breaking down all of these things. I think for the first time we have at least we call Twitter the town square, whatever. Somebody who comes and does not speak to us using those big jargon and all of that, and we're able to
Understand.
participate. Yeah. Now, still staying with regulations and all those things, there's something called electronic travel authorization.
Ooh, okay.
It's not a stranger to travelers.
Yeah.
If you go to North America, Canada has it. The US has had it for visitors from Europe, and starting this year, the EU is having it for visitors from the US, reciprocation. And now also we're having it too. But ours is very interesting.
First of all, the president said these are free, and then he went ahead and made it electronic visa ya $30 na $50 ka uko na mbio, which makes no sense.
So, you know, why I'm bringing this up is because Nairobi sits as a hub for tech in the region. If you look at the funding in the past year, I think we've overtaken everyone to become top.
The most funded startups are from Kenya.
Yeah. So what that means is, for a lot of people from the outside
Africa.
world, in Africa and the rest of the world, there's always a need to come to Nairobi. The most popular thread around this discussion is from a Malawi guy.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah. So does that mean next time people are doing these nice numbers about startups where they're flourishing and everything, Nairobi might slide as a result?
One, I don't think so, because the people funding startups nanini can pay the $30, $50.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a problem.
Yeah.
But then there is the reciprocation bit. We've gone to South Africa in the past year. Sindio, you wake up, book a flight, go to your plane, go to South Africa. They tell you Karibu South Africa. You walk. Now imagine reciprocation means you have to pay $30, $50 to enter South Africa
and wait for 72
hours.
Yeah.
It's not the same. You go to Ethiopia the way you want, because as long as you're there for 7 days, Amanini, it's not a problem.
And you know, Ethiopia has treated us so nicely because of a personal relationship between Jomo Kenyatta and Haile Selassie. We are one of two countries that have been visa-free since independence.
With no issues.
Other countries face brick walls to get
into Ethiopia. So you go to countries where it has always been visa-free. I am looking for countries: Nepal, Jamaica. Tell me,
a lot of the Caribbean islands actually.
So what happens in reciprocation if they start charging Kenyans? Now we are losing the opportunity of also going to their countries, which is the whole point of removing visas. If you're going to remove visas, it should be come to Kenya. It's easier to make it simpler, so an ETA exists, but it's not paid for. Sindio. 2, you encourage people to visit and spend locally, not give. I think the whole motif ETA was to raise money, because all the press releases are like, oh, look, we've raised 115 billion in 1 week.
Do you know, I just sat here and realized all of us in 2023 went to South Africa and can speak to that visa-free
thing.
And then in December, if you are checking online, it's almost like everyone and their dog was in South Africa. Because of the visa-free thing.
Yes.
And that has done wonders to their tourism.
South Africa Tourism Board is even using Kenyan influencers.
Yes.
So what happens when they decide, oh, you want to charge us to come to your country? We will charge you.
Because going to South Africa is actually very smooth. I mean, just show up. I mean...
And the immigration there are very nice.
Very friendly. Hawakuulizi maswali mingi kama wa Kenya.
June?
No, I have nothing further to add. I agree. I just need to have it streamlined.
Yeah, exactly.
Because much as you've said your startup guys are rich, tech bros are rich, $30 is nothing to them. Having to file all manner of documents being asked for, like you're applying for a Schengen visa and wait for 72 hours.
And then remember, the worst part of the ETA is this: it's one entry. It's not like, say, an American ETA for European customers, for European citizens, where it's multiple entries throughoughout the year.
It's a proper money grab.
It's a proper money grab.
Yeah, every time you're coming in.
Umetoka tu hivi kidogo kwa Uganda, hai, lipa $30.
Interesting. Away from those things, something has happened over the last few days. We had a major M-Pesa outage right at the start of the year, which gives us something to talk about and maybe something to worry about. Is this how the year is going to be?
No, Safaricom needs to get serious. I think there's just some things you don't allow to happen. You know, you're talking about core services. Okay, it was Naomi actually was saying earlier. You know, there are some things you can't allow to happen, but core services like M-Pesa, calls and everything. Without official comms from an operator, that's
over 4 hours of an outage,
that should not be allowed.
Official
Actually,
statement. I think what they are trying to do right now, Niku, have you received 100 or 70 bob?
Sijapata yangu. Haven't
They're
received.
sending back cash. They're sending back cash to everyone affected, which is not the solution.
Doesn't you know?
How long will you send cash?
I have a nephew who was stuck because they were traveling to school that same day.
Yeah, na 70 bob haiwezi kusaidia.
Na shule iko na strict reporting
Yes.
time. That was a mess, like a proper mess. And then M-Pesa operates with everything. You can't even do a bank transfer.
Yeah.
It's M-Pesa.
My suggestion, and I wrote and made a video about this, is let's encourage as many mobile money solutions as possible to be taken up. Business ikuwe na all the possible means of accepting cash or mobile money. Customers will sign up for Airtel Money, or sign up for Vuma, or sign up for as many as possible, so that to rely on one infrastructure in Gava doesn't seem to see is not doing so well. Because how many outages have we had the M-Pesa before the last 2 years? And how many have we had in the last 2 years? I remember the major outage was 2015, ama 20 what, which I was paralyzed. Nakumbuka nilikuwa najaribu kutoka shule and I couldn't move. But then since then, it was always minor. And there was a time there were notifications. There will be an outage between 12 and 6. There will be an outage between nini. What happened to those? Sahi tumekuwa na outage yenye watu wana learn when they are transacting. You go to Safaricom official pages, there is nothing. That's not the way to do.
And your bank has been fast.
And your bank has already told you, oh, you can't use M-Pesa for...
And
they're on the same WhatsApp group with Kenya Power.
We used to be told after the migration, such things will be handled better.
But here we are. I think one, we should encourage hizo alternatives. Two, we should encourage vitu kama zinaitwaje cards na nini, which are even free.
I feel card payments. I use cards actually more than even I use M-Pesa. It's cheaper and it's free, right? It's free. It's free.
And
So
you get points if you use that.
And to cards, just going a step back, because I usually find how we interact with mobile money a tad better than
cards.
Yes,
It's going a step back, but
it works.
But remember, one, there's sahi tuko na watuka Visa na KCB who are implementing
tap to pay,
where you add your card to your app and you tap your card at the POS and you tap your phone at the POS and you go your way. So if we encourage uptake of cards have moved forward, and most phones last year Tecno na Infinix walikuwa
NFC.
So everyone has an NFC.
40 series.
Yes.
NFC.
I learned yesterday that you can verify your LinkedIn account by scanning the NFC chip on your passport. Did you know that?
Okay.
There's an NFC chip on your passport. Put the phone on top of it, LinkedIn verifies you.
Nice.
So there's so much that we can do with card payments yenye tuache tu kukaa kwa app yenye ina fail every time.
June, because this conversation has been had for a long time. Would, for instance, delinking the telco bit of Safaricom from the financial services help?
Wow. Above my pay grade. No, but I think that's still an ongoing conversation, right? Because even for Safcom themselves, I do think it's separated for legal purposes.
We have M-Pesa Africa.
Yeah, that's separate from Safaricom Core, which also explains why they're trying to push more connectivity and better network. Difficultly, but they're trying. So I think it's an interesting conversation to have. Closely linked to that is the conversation around critical infrastructure, how we classify that and how we protect that. There was a law that had been proposed, but then it seems to have lapsed now. But then that law was ideally to help protect and ensure that critical services are up as they are needed to be, and they're better protected than other regular, quote-unquote, normal services.
And that bill has been there for long.
It has. It has been introduced around several houses.
Sorry. Okay.
You can.
I saw while trying to push for the bill to be, to be introduced. So I hope actually they actually do that, because it's going to protect a lot of things. Like M-Pesa itself is actually it's a critical infrastructure, right?
National security.
Yeah.
And we got ourselves here.
My question is, with an outage like the one that happened, when it happens, who do you go to? Who do you complain to? It can't be Safaricom who runs the thing.
That should be the CA. Well, between the CA and CBK, customer support or customer complaints.
Because we are in a Boeing situation. They are self-regulating. You remember, Boeing is, by the time we're recording this, there's that whole 737 MAX 9 fiasco. But it comes from somewhere. We've had a previous crisis with MCAS on the 737-8 MAX 8, whatever. that conversation has been going on, but core to it has been that the US regulator, the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, actually is like, as a government agency, is underfunded and like understaffed. So they do delegate a lot of the regulatory work to the aircraft makers themselves to self-regulate.
Which is interesting because that's what a lot of big tech seeks to do, and that's what the tech industry pushes hardly, very strongly.
Because while that works for the most part, they're more efficient, all of those, government and red tape everywhere. But when stuff like this happens, who's the adult in the room?
Someone has to be held responsible, right?
No, somebody that me and you can go to.
You could probably also go to CAK, by the way.
Oh yeah, actually,
It should be CAK. It should be CAK. Lakini the problem ni CAK haionyeshi any effort.
That's the competition authority.
No, competition authority.
Okay,
not communication authority. But communication authority, because there are times when you write emails to communication authority that there is a booster here, there is no network.
I know.
How many times do you get
to communications authority?
Yes,
about the boosters?
Communication authority. Kuna villages hatuna internet, hatuna nini. Telcom has been down for how many months?
That should be another episode.
There's like, from where I see there's a gap. Like, all these things happen, who do you go to? Can't be the same people who are responsible. They have their reasons and maybe they're working on it, but because for something that is as critical as M-Pesa, and we can't have just any other government functionary shouting. That's not how things work. There ought to be like a proper framework that looks into those things. Because imagine if it was sabotaged by an external actor,
like when Anonymous Sudan claimed nini, and
Citizen.
it was ilifanywa hivi chini.
Hata ya KQ, the reason KQ ilikanyagiwa chini,
KQ data leak.
Yes.
But I had proposed
I think now we've already moved into something interesting that we should be talking about cyber security in 2024, because that was a recurring theme in 2023 from fintechs, financial services providers being attacked to whatever quote unquote Anonymous Sudan did that crippled everything. And today, more than ever before, we've talked about the electronic travel authorization. It's an online system run by the government. E-Citizen, and we've talked about M-Pesa. We have a centralized pay bill. So when it fails, it means if you are in a queue at a national bank, you can't get in.
Or get out.
At the museum you can't do anything. Like basically nothing can happen. Do you know how crippling that is? So if you have quote unquote Anonymous Sudan again in October 2024.
I think I have a prediction closely linked to that. The computer, the SAT, computer incident response teams. I expect to see more reporting from them. They already do a good job in terms of reporting. I think the gap is where people do not have an obligation to report, and so sometimes they do not. However, they should. So I expect to see more active engagement from the SATs, and maybe just sharing more visibility on what the SAT is, what they do, who you complain to, regulators taking their place and letting people know.
We have a bunch of elections coming up on the continent. We don't have elections in Kenya this year, thankfully.
Hey, not thankfully.
Society of Kenya.
The lawyers have the elections. And interestingly, the lawyer elections also run by IBC, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I think anyone can have a EBC work for them.
We've had them at the students' organization.
I think you can call them and use them.
But for those other African countries that will be having election, I think there are over a dozen. For them, what that means in this part of the world means possible internet blackouts.
Welcome to Africa.
But for us in Kenya, we are discussing internet blackouts in a very interesting context. Social media content regulation. We've had this become a topic in Parliament, and it's become a topic also on social media itself. And we also saw it play out towards the end of the year when Telegram was being throttled in the country.
No, it was confirmed.
The scientific data is there to say it was being throttled, but the government agencies and everyone who cares to hear from them, they denied it. So we are. So how is that going to play out in 2024? When KCSE comes along later in the year, will we also not be able to use Telegram unless we use VPN?
Like they did this time?
How do
I
you
don't
see
know.
it playing out?
One, we need to make more noise. Today, there's an article from BD saying that Kenya lost how many billion during Telegram outage? I don't know if you've seen the article.
I haven't read it yet.
Let me just look for the article. So NetBlocks has confirmed that Kenya lost a significant amount of money from possible transactions that could be done on Telegram during the outage. So if that's a confirmation of kwanza gava inatafuta pesa, that's so much exchange lost. Kenya lost 4.2 billion due to Telegram shutdown in 2023.
Wow.
So there's confirmation that things happened. Now hatujaongelelea. One, the media haikuongelelea, the mainstream media, it was us making noise. I had a sit down with watu wa NetBlocks na nini wakiniuliza hii article umeandika we are trying to do nini, can we quote you na nini. So you're like, why would they quote me and not say NTV is not KBC, not Nini? Because the mainstream media didn't pay attention to that. Two, every day people are complaining on Twitter, Telegram is not working. What if it was WhatsApp? Unaelewa? And what is this strategy that government managed to block WhatsApp without telecoms raising arms? Mbona Airtel hawapigi kelele, Safaricom hawapigi kelele that our internet is being affected? So what does that show in case they plan a full internet shutdown? Yeah.
Because just before we started shooting this, I was watching a video from someone at Safaricom who was saying, because the fake news that was circulating, calling it fake news, when M-Pesa was down, was that KRA services are being linked to
I saw
M-Pesa
that.
services. So I was watching a video, some lady from Safaricom was debunking that and saying that's not what was happening, and we will never let this happen. Good. If you will never let this happen, then how
did you let Telegram go down? Yes. And why wasn't there a statement saying we do not? Yeah.
Again, the question will be, in such a cases, who do we go to? Because CA, the media did reach out to CA. They denied this.
CA on Twitter said no.
Yeah.
I think if I can find a tweet where they said something.
So we are just left there as Telegram users to just fend for ourselves. Yeah.
But no, I mean, there's the UN resolution around.
Freedom of
Yeah,
expression,
exactly.
Article
Yeah.
19.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, because then it becomes a bigger digital rights conversation, right? For access to information,
Yeah, that's
freedom.
the word, digital rights.
Freedom of expression, but then also the human right to access to the internet, which is now recognized as a human right. Top of mind, I think the best way to resolve it would be through litigation, but then do we really have to get there? We can simply have those
Litigation,
conversations.
somebody's New Year message was a fight with that body, with that arm of the government that handles our judicial affairs. So I don't even know if that government will obey those orders if they were issued any, because we already started the year on a very high note.
True.
Yeah, there were protests today on the same. So
Oh yeah, and escape people.
yeah.
Well,
I think hatujui kitu cha kusema, but one, my most important point itakuwa that talking more about it is better than doing nothing. If you don't have a body to present your grievances to, just talk about it. Talk about it on Twitter, talk about it, write about it, podcast about it, say that this happened, so that it is a known fact that Telegram was shut down. Government has means to do it. Government, what happens when, say, I don't like that website, unaelewa, and I sit at Safaricom, so I can just shut it down. Ama what happens when there's an expose by a journalist ama nini? Will YouTube be shut down? Unaona vitu kama hivyo. So talking about
talking about YouTube, there was that report. Was it from Google showing the takedown requests?
Oh yeah, it was from from Google.
And our numbers are going up, right? So
there is a lot that, and if we don't have bodies, we can just make noise about.
And that's why those records were coming from the government.
So my research last year was actually on that, and what I'd do is I'd get different records and reports that were done by the different social media companies and platforms. Some of them report, some don't, but then it's interesting that Google used to, and I know what the process is, because then there's different ways to take down content on platforms and websites, You can just get a bit into it. So there's legal issues and then there's policy issues. So the legal ones are where you have a court order which says this is illegal in this country, whether it's hate speech, those crimes, those are the criminal related ones. And then there's the policy ones where the organization has set certain policies based on their standards and global norms, where they say we can't have this kind of content on the platforms and on the website, such as nudity, etc. So it's interesting to say that, and maybe we should have a conversation around content removals and how that stays up and stays down. And also on the domain name system side of things, which supports how the internet works, to see how that's taken down, because then that links to what Dickson is saying about websites and how they stay up or stay down.
That's important. Now we are going to have that because content removal means somebody sitting somewhere has reviewed the content.
Yeah.
And content moderation is
ideally, if it's not AI.
Yeah. Oh dear. Yeah. And now remove the AI from the picture. Content moderation has been a conversation for a minute in Kenya because of what has been happening with Sama and Meta. And the case is still in court. It's active. So there'll be developments and we'll be sure to talk about them and cover them. Lastly, I want us to talk about e-mobility. Last year we had, was it last year or last year but one Kenya
last year the president aliendesha a small car.
Wait, it's last year. Oh yeah, we entered.
We had a whole climate thing at KICC and
we even had a national tree planting day for carbon credits.
And the Kenya Power had an e-mobility summit, was it?
Yes.
Yeah. So lots of things happened. So are we expecting to find charging stations in Mtitwande?
One, and this is something is on Wax as an article on Techish, is this: building an infrastructure for electric vehicles is so hard. One, petrol stations ziko na tanks underground where they're sealed from air and water. So all that happens is a pipe pours oil into it, or a tanker comes and pours oil into it. An electric charging station does not work the same way. You have to have electricity to that place, then have batteries stored at that place that can move up to how many kilowatts per minute into a battery. So you need to generate it, store it, then move it. Generation has loss. Storing has loss. Transmission has loss. So is it actually environmentally friendly? Two, infrastructure building is more expensive. Building one petrol station here and having 4 tankers move the oil from Mombasa to the station is cheaper in 100 years than building an electric station here, having tankers battery store, degrade because battery degrades over a period of time, doing what nini, and having a customer. One, remember, how long does it take you to fill a car, an electric, a normal car? It's 2 minutes. You come in a pump, you go. What lines will we have if everyone drives an EV? Because it takes about 1 hour to charge.
We'll have charging points.
So you'll have to have
at our
as many charging
places in our homes.
Yeah. So there's so much infrastructure that needs to be availed for you to actually drive an EV in Kenya, a full EV. So my argument is we should start with hybrids. Yes.
Anyway, talking about that, I was saying we'll have charging points in our homes, in our places. Then I remember this day of outages.
In a country where what we are proposing is, what is it called? Load shedding. In a country where what we are proposing is vitu, like tunarudi nyuma. How do you start looking into electricity when you can't have electricity in a hospital? When you can't have electricity in a in an airport.
Wow.
Too soon.
Nick, you've been to Olkaria?
Yeah, I've been to Olkaria.
We went to the geothermal.
Because I think at Olkaria they have like 2 charging points. Some of the fast charging points in the country for EVs.
Yeah,
there are charging points right now.
And Kenya Power and Kengen are building some across the country. They did a trial in Murang'a, I think.
If you
from where I sit, I'm expecting.
They were talking about having around 2,000 of them within. I can't remember the period, but they were talking about having 2,000 of them, within, I think, last year. I don't know if that was implemented or not. Yeah.
I still stand with this. There are many charging points in Kenya. Sait karibu Sarit. Kuna charging point Sarit. Kuna charging point Gigiri. Kuna charging point to Rivers. Kuna charging point Wapi. But say the 4 of us have electric vehicles. Venye Sait tumekuja na initoje? Tumekuja na ice cars. Sasa sisi wote tuende Sarit sahi. Itachukua how long kujaza? 1 2 sisi wote tuwe na infrastructure ya kuicharge kwa nyumba. Tutakuwa tunalipa tokens za pesa ngapi wakati hatuna system ya tokens ya maana?
Yesterday they just said 16%.
That's crazy.
So it's not a viable solution to an non-existent problem. Bado tuko na hatuna issues mingi sana na environment in Kenya. Hatuwezi anza kusema anyway.
But then we've seen difference with the PSVs from Basigo that haven't.
Yes, because that works well. you have a bus that has charge for a whole day. 2, I saw this in Rwanda, wanaitwa ampersand. You drive your electric bike as much as you want. Ikiisha battery, itakuambia kwa display.
Yeah, you go replace the battery.
Vuruta, ingiza nyingine.
Yeah.
Leave them with the battery. They own the battery. In Basigo, they own kila kitu. We kazi yako ni kulease from them. It works. But if everyone akona battery yake yenye una charge, I don't think it works in Kenya bado. So if it doesn't work in America bado with a complex charging system where now Tesla is offering its infrastructure for others to charge, will it work in Kenya? And who has the capacity to build charging stations from Mombasa to Busia?
Okay. So do you think, for example, if an EV manufacturer came to Kenya and then actually had their own infrastructure, that would work?
I think it's debatable. Okay. Huyo manufacturer lazima awe na assurance that atapata customers.
Well, for now, if my understanding of the affordable housing thing is correct, we already have the government looking out for the contractors and everyone by taking our money. So if the government wanted, they could take more of our money. And
I think electric vehicles, and this is debatable, so kila kitu nasema is right, but I think electric vehicles bado hatujafika hapo as a need. It could work for other like public transport, electric trains and all that, but to see push sana for our personal full electric vehicles. Hybrids, I will give everything for a hybrid. See charge naendesha na mafuta yangu
that's
normal.
the plug-in, the plug-in.
Yes. Yeah, napata very good fuel consumption na nikitaka ku overtake kwa barabara kana
So I think that wraps up our main talking points for episode 69 of the 24-bit podcast, which also happens to be our first episode of the year. Any other burning topic thing that you expect to see this year?
New Director General at the Communications Authority.
Okay, we are shooting this on 12th January, so that guy, as per the communique from the authority,
15th
on Monday,
takes up office on Monday, on 15th.
We already mid-month. Jesus Christ. Okay.
And they'll be having a full entry, right? Because this day we are going full throttle with the 5G rollout. Yeah. We've had 5G, almost every other phone that we cover on our blogs that's launching comes with 5G
we have
now.
Cheap 5G phones from as little as 22K from Xiaomi.
The Galaxy A15 now has
5G. But it's expensive anyway. That's a topic for another podcast.
We're coming to discuss those phones soon.
When we were talking about AI, there's something that I wanted to cover, lakini nika sleki na tukaruka kwa VAT, kwa tax. We are moving from normal launches za vitu. Like I think we've hit the limit of what phones and devices look like and what they can do. People have tried foldables, people have tried bendables, rollables and all that. So we're seeing a lot of startups moving into generative AI, doing stuff like the Rabbit R1, the AI pin.
The human AI pin. And they laid off people yesterday, right?
So we are going to see a lot of attempts in that industry because people are asking, what can the human AI pin do that my phone can't do? But then what are they pushing and what could that idea grow into in the future?
Because so far we have Rabbit from this year and last year the human AI. So
human AI is 700, Rabbit is 199.
And
so
they've
what comes
outsold all of them. So we're expecting to see a lot more of those. And they look like, for instance, you can say they're application specific, but they also they can do everything.
They get you out of the app ecosystem so that it's more like a personal AI. It's like if you watched Iron Man Jarvis, unamwongelesha venye unataka.
Something else before just the president is actually expected to sign the startup bill. He said by March, I think. I can't remember.
I have no idea what the startup bill is.
I covered that story. Okay.
I just hope we don't sign the ile bill yenye inajiletanga every year.
Which one? The
computer sijui practitioner.
There's always some idiot.
And then there's an AI bill pia. Sijui kama imefika any stage ya maana. There's an AI regulation bill, which is not AI regulation in the like yenye European Union ilipass. This is just a stupid bill yenye inajaribu ku limit what you can do in AI.
Is it really a stupid bill the day robots running out of town?
No, like there's a topic hapa, how do we regulate AI research and nini, which the European Union decided we don't for now. We keep it running, but we look at ethics na nini. But then there's the bill ya Kenya yenye, you can't nini AI without paying what, you can't nini, which is just stupid.
Anyway.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, gentlemen and lady, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for listening to episode 69. We hope to have a lot more episodes coming to you. If you're listening to this, we'll also ask you for your feedback. What else do you want to hear on 24-bit this year? What do you want to hear being discussed? We'll talk a lot more about phones and all the tech that comes with them. But what else do you want to hear from us? Thank you for listening in. I've been your host, Chenze Emmanuel. You can find what I write at androidkenya.com.
Dickson Otieno, techish.com.
Nixon Kanali at techtrends.co.ke.
And our guest? Okal. Just Okal.
Okay, we hope to have June a lot more here to provide us with lots of insights, and especially the legal areas where that's really not legal our tech, fault. Yeah. And policy around tech and all of those things. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.